straight answer out of YouTube. I will be doing just the pictures of the characters and no gameplay video because I don't understand what happened. So in order to protect myself and this channel, I'm going to have to go back to doing the just the pictures and the videos. Unfortunately, YouTube doesn't exactly give you a solid answer as to what happened. I did appeal the copyright strike, and my rights to stream and upload are being restored. I don't know how long that will take, and I apologize. Unfortunately, I didn't have anything backlogged that I could send you a message in because I couldn't so much as touch the YouTube creator dashboard. So again, I apologize for that. I need to set up a Twitter or something to let you guys know what's going on. But anyway, hopefully this gets uploaded relatively soon, because if not, I'm going to have an absolute conniption fit. Because YouTube's policies are really starting to irk my nerves. And I'm using that to be as politically correct as possible, because I don't want to drop any more F-bombs than I had to do over the phone. We had a long discussion about what counts now as copyrightable material, thanks to Article 13. And apparently, my video got played by somebody in the EU. Now, normally, I didn't think that would be likely, but apparently it is. And like I said, I'm doing my best to correct the issue. However, the other thing that happened was I found out that the microphone that I currently have can do binaural work like this. So I decided I would drop this at the beginning of this video. I will be back in roughly 2 weeks, 3 weeks time. Hopefully less than, because I'm still waiting for YouTube to appeal all my stuff as far as the stream goes. However, I did get called out on YouTube for using swear words, and I was told that that was a no-no, because they had someone go in and manually look at my stuff to see why I flagged. To be honest, they don't know why it flagged either, but it's YouTube system and it's kind of broken. So I've converted the file format that I'm using everything in to AAC MP4, and hopefully that won't cause any more issues. Mainly, I'm hoping it doesn't screw with my audio. I might actually have this up too loud, I'm not sure. But I will be working and producing more videos in the near future. So please stay tuned, and my apologies for not being able to let you guys know anything. I should have a backup plan for this kind of occasion, or something that I can just post if I get taken down again. Like I said, the copyright strike did not stick, but it was mildly irritating because I had to wait for YouTube to appeal it. I got the email notification today saying that my copyright strike would not stick, and that they'll be pulling down the copyright strike shortly. They didn't give a definite time, and I'm kind of annoyed by that. But at least it didn't stick. So, here's the video, guys. Albert Wesker. It's going to be a 30-minute audio, so please enjoy. Hello everybody, and today we'll be doing a review of Albert Wesker. He was featured in multiple Resident Evil games, and he was probably the biggest antagonist for the Resident Evil franchise until Resident Evil 5, which I don't know if... honestly, I wish they hadn't killed him off, but... and spoilers, if you didn't know that, he's dead, he's dead. Because he was a great villain. And even in the original game. Like, I'm talking like the 1997 version. He was still a really good villain. He was played by a not so great voice actor, but it was 1997 and games weren't exactly in their full development stage, so character planning wasn't a big thing back then. Most games were still using text-based stuff. They were just starting to add voices to characters. So, but that's enough of that. We're gonna go ahead and get into this and strap in because this is gonna be a long one. Power-hungry, knowledgeable, sadistic, callous, and infinitely cunning. Those are the attributes that describe Albert Wesker. Wesker was a man who sought power and domination over the entire human race, all for his own gain. To this end, he was affiliated with the Umbrella Corporation as one of its most promising researchers, and at the same time participated in illicit activities by going undercover as an officer in the RPD, as the leader of the STARS unit in Raccoon City. Throughout the course of much betrayal of his allies to further his own plans, Wesker faked his own death and gained superhuman powers from a prototype virus, and worked alongside both the mysterious organization and Tricell Inc. However, eventually, enacting a plot originally created by Oswald E. Spencer to transform the human race into the most powerful superhumans like himself, and to be a god to rule over them all in a new age, Wesker was the central antagonist for much of the series, surpassing even Oswald E. Spencer. Now, a little bit of background information on him. His date of birth was 1960. The date of his death was March 7th, 2009. Race/nationality, Caucasian American. Occupations: Umbrella's researcher and security officer from 1978 to 1998. United States Army commissioned engineer officer. STARS captain from 1996 to 1998. HFC operative in 1998. Rival company employee in 1998. Organization operative in 2004 and Tricell researcher in 2003 to 2009. Now, the biggest thing that most people need to know is everybody that he worked for, he played. Basically, he had bigger aspirations than even the large corporations did. Albert Wesker really was insane. He wanted to control the entire world. But we'll get into that more in a second. Albert Wesker was born to parents with allegedly superior intellectual genes. He and dozens of other children his caliber were collected and raised as components of the Wesker Project by Umbrella Corp. And given the surname Wesker, which he showed particular promise over the other children. Umbrella founder Oswald E. Spencer, who saw Albert in the makings of what his children needed. Not coincidentally, Wesker would go on to serve the same company that had indoctrinated and monitored him his entire life. Completely oblivious to his origins or Spencer's true intentions, in 1997, the newly employed 17-year-old Wesker was assigned to the Umbrella Executive Training Center under Dr. James Marcus as a prospective manager. It was there that he met the fellow trainee, Dr. William Birkin, and the two became colleagues and accomplices for years to come. Both Wesker and Birkin were regarded by Marcus as his best employees, as well as the only people he trusted. When the training facility was closed down in July 29th of 1978, the two were personally transferred to the Arclay Laboratory in Spencer's mansion, which was just outside of Raccoon City, becoming the mansion's chief researchers. Upon their arrival, Wesker was handed a file from the laboratory's president regarding the Ebola virus, which had been discovered 2 years earlier. The laboratory was to the outside world studying samples of the Ebola virus for usage in creating a vaccine, whereas in reality Umbrella was researching its impressive death rate for usage in experimental T-virus research. Wesker and Birkin's research on the T-virus lasted until 1988, when the tyrant BOW was born. Around that same time, they were ordered by Spencer to assassinate their former mentor, Marcus, and steal all of his research. Birkin's research also yielded the discovery of the Goliath virus, or the G virus, in the body of Lisa Trevor, a longtime test subject in the Arkley mansion. In 1991, Spencer approved Birkin's G virus project, but Wesker began to have doubts about Spencer's intentions due to his inordinate amount of BOW's development funding and the request of a transfer to Umbrella's Intelligence Bureau that same year in the hopes of finding answers. He would spend the next few years as a commissioned officer in the United States Army. In 1996, Wesker joined the newly formed STARS division of the Raccoon City Police Department, where he worked as a double agent for Umbrella and giving them information on any police investigations. During his time in the division, he took note of Chris Redfield's abilities. The betrayal. In 1998, the spring and summer of 1998 saw considerable upset to Umbrella in Raccoon City with the new Epsilon strain infection. A number of staff at the Arkley laboratory in May, prompting a quarantine of the staff while its guards made preparations to shoot all escapees. Wesker and Burton personally visited the lab shortly after the alarm was raised to evacuate the cloned embryos of the T-002 tyrant and one of Umbrella's most important assets. Wesker also gave orders to forbid phone calls in order to limit the spread of information. Escaped Supers BOWs, however, escaped from their cages and began killing and attacking civilians in Raccoon Forest, with infected survivors going on to kill others. By July, the number of killings had surpassed 20 in what the RPD theorized to be the work of a cult, but were unable to find suspects. So after press backlash, they were assigned to the case. They assigned the STARS to the case, no longer able to manage the situation from within. Umbrella HQ produced the X-Day plans, giving Wesker a series of tasks to perform during the mission. He received orders to sacrifice the STARS to the mutants to provide combat data, eliminating them as witnesses and collecting the remaining BOW embryos, and to finally destroy the Arkley laboratory itself to wipe out all traces of the virus. On July 23rd, Wesker sabotaged the engine of Bravo Team's helicopter, which would prevent their escape and required Alpha Team's subsequent investigation. During the STARS preparation, Wesker and Birkin also had other duties with the company and were to oversee a reopening of an executive training school, possibly to make up for the loss of the Arkley laboratory. An attack by a nascent mutant leech colony destroyed 2 armed investigation teams and infected the occupants of a private train, taking key personnel to the school. To prevent the outbreak from spreading further, the two made plans to blow up the training school. While there, Wesker encountered Colonel Sergei Vladimir, the executive in charge of the UBCS. After Umbrella's HQ took notice of the incident, Wesker escaped from the facility before its destruction, but his experiences in the night convinced him abandoning Umbrella was now essential, and agreed to a rival company's offer of employment in exchange for giving them the embryo samples rather than handing them over to Umbrella. the team out to the mountains, as he had expected. To better his chances of survival, Wesker provided with a mutant strain of the T-virus designed to mutate his body and further his strength and stamina. He also threatened Barry Burton with the non-existent threat of his family's murder, forcing him to assist in the confiscation or destruction of incriminating evidence. Soon after arriving, Bravo Team's helicopter site, where RPD pilot Kevin Dooley's body was discovered, the team was attacked by Superus, and Joseph Frost was killed, with the pilot Brad Vickers abandoning the group. The others fled to the nearby Spencer Mansion to seek shelter inside. Wesker separated themselves into groups and continued his mission. During the night, he discovered Captain Enrico Marini to be alive and having incriminating evidence against Umbrella, and prompting him to shoot him in the underground tunnels before fleeing. In the lab, Wesker began preparations for waking up the Tyrant to kill the remaining STARS member survivors, infecting himself with the mutant virus shortly before doing so. He was commured by his comrades while in the chamber, and confessed his role in Umbrella's conspiracy before ordering the Tyrant to attack them. However, the T-002 recognized Wesker as participation in the Tyrant project, and he was stabbed Wesker first, impaling him through the chest before going after the others. Wesker was seriously wounded. The virus in his body had succeeded in mutating him to possess powerful regenerative abilities, and woke him up in the empty room. With the self-destruct system prematurely activated by his computer access restricted by Colonel Vladimir and the Red Queen AI, Wesker was unable to recover the embryos or any important data to hand over to Umbrella's rival company. He narrowly escaped the destruction of the mansion after a fight with Lisa Trevor, but his improved speed ensured his survival. Believed dead by Umbrella and STARS, Wesker was able to gain employment within the company despite his failure to provide the sample. Still maintaining the illusion of death, Wesker avoided showing himself publicly and instead took to being the contact between the organization and its spies. When Dr. William Birkin completed the Goliath, the organization made plans to steal it, and Wesker played a role as an external contact between the group and their spy, Ada Wong. The other being a liaison based within the Apple Inn. With the T-virus outbreak slowing down Wong's investigation, the liaison killed herself to avoid turning into a zombie. Through a computer feed, Wesker took over the liaison's role and waited for Wong to arrive on October 1st. When she confirmed the retrieval of the Goliath sample, Wesker directed her to Umbrella's helicopter, ferrying Colonel Vladimir, an executive, out of the city, which she hitched a ride on to escape the bombing. Following the acquisition of the Goliath, the organization began sending paramilitary groups, the HFC, out on raids to Umbrella bases to recover data on bioweapon samples. Wesker led a raid on Rockford Island in December of 1998. Alexia Ashford and her research team on the T. Veronica virus and the Ashford-owned island was a logical place to begin their search. Saboteurs arrived on the island ahead of the main assault and planted explosives within the military training center, which released a T-virus strain into the ecosystem, as well as releasing POWs. Much of the island's infrastructure was destroyed in the subsequent bombing by the HFC aircraft. Following the development of the special team searching for the T-virus samples of which Wesker took direct involvement, they were unsuccessful in locating samples on the island. Though Wesker did discover Claire Redfield, Chris's younger sister, had been taken captive by Umbrella and imprisoned in its concentration camp. Chris arrived the following day looking for her. Wesker was interrupted on both occasions when he was about to kill them, and soon after left the island for a submarine, discovering Alexia was alive and well at Umbrella's Antarctic base. The facility had itself also fallen to the T-virus outbreak after refugees from Rockport Island fled there, but the team succeeded in entering through the submarine pen. Finding himself in an underground mansion, Wesker met Alexia for the first time and demanded she hand herself over to provide him with a sample. She refused and began to mutate into a more powerful form, which even Wesker was unprepared for. And he was forced to flee the mansion. Not long after, the HSC discovered the body of Steve Burnside, a teenager Alexia had recently used the T. Veronica virus on, as a test subject. And they returned to the submarine, having discovered Chris and Claire in the Antarctic. Wesker finally took advantage of this opportunity to eliminate the two, initially taking Claire hostage and dragging her to the submarine. He was persuaded to let her run on the promise of a fight with Chris, though he was able to dominate Chris with little effort. Chris got the better of him by dropping metal girders onto him. With the facility close to self-destruct and the skin burned by a fire, Wesker gave up and left for the submarine. With the organization now in possession of the Goliath T. Veronica and manufacturing modified clones of several Umbrella BOWs, Wesker took a more senior role in selling these bioweapons to interested parties. As Umbrella entered its long period of collapse, by August of 2002, Wesker was negotiating the sale of weapons to Javier Hidalgo. The drug lord running the Sacred Snakes cartel. An Umbrella customer for over 10 years, Hidalgo began to suspect he was being conned as prices began to increase for the Russian production plant. Wesker convinced him to cease buying from Umbrella and that a third-party Asian broker asking Hidalgo for information was an Umbrella agent investigating him. Not long after the sale of the T. Veronica virus, Hidalgo entered a murderous rage over his daughter running away, and it caused a viral outbreak. As his zombie army and BOWs began to destroy nearby communities, Wesker watched from a cliff as the U.S. government's anti-Umbrella pursuit and investigation team, itself investigating the Asian broker, was forced to tackle the biohazard and ultimately killed Hidalgo. Soon after his incident, he was tracked down by Jack Krauser, an American soldier who had been injured during the mission and was removed from active service, who believed Wesker could help him find new purpose in life. He soon after faked his death in an accident to explain away his disappearance and entered service as an agent for whom Wesker could trust. In early 2003, the organization became aware of a series of unusual incidents in the Caucasus which led them to believe that a biohazard was responsible. It was thereafter discovered that the region was the location of Umbrella's secret Russian base, and Wesker traveled there in search of UMF-13. The Arklay Laboratories supercomputer Colonel Vladimir had confiscated shortly before Alpha Team's arrival. At the Spencer Mansion, nearly 5 years prior, heading to a village close to Umbrella's oil plant base, he discovered it had fallen to the outbreak and had the Hunter Delta BOWs they were bribed to keep in storage had escaped. During his search, joined an anti-biohazard force, and were also alerted by goings-on in Russia. Too busy to kill them, he retrieved the data and left. Wesker arrived at the Umbrella base when the outbreak had almost fully engulfed it. Colonel Vladimir, one of the few uninfected staff members left, though he made his way into the facility before the anti-biohazard force arrived, he was slowed down by Colonel Vladimir Ivan's bodyguards and was forced to kill them. To progress further, when he reached the control center, Colonel Vladimir was overseeing the Talos fight with Redfield and Valentine. Rather than give up his allegiances to the sunken ship, the executive infected himself with a perfected strain of the T-virus to match Wesker in a fight over the computer. Vladimir lost the fight, and Wesker downloaded UMF-13's entire database. The Umbrella archives before ordering the Red Queen to delete everything on the server, denying his former star's comrade access to incriminating information that could be used against Umbrella. Soon after the raid, Wesker provided the archives, or at least excerpts of it, to the U.S. government, having been locked into a dead-end lawsuit with Umbrella USA over damages following the destruction of Raccoon City. The excerpts provided irrefutable proof that they were manufacturers of the virus and that they contaminated the town. After the verdict made requiring compensation for the victims, Umbrella Pharmaceuticals was forced to declare bankruptcy, and the U.S. and Russian Federation collaborating in the tracking down of the whereabouts of Dr. Spencer. Soon after the raid on the Caucasus facility, Wesker entered talks with Tricell. Although nearly all of the major pharmaceutical companies had their reputations damaged by the revelation of Umbrella performed the experiments with their products, Tricell Africa, under the Excelligione, was interested in the emerging bioweapon black market as an emergence of dedicated anti-BOW organizations necessitated better BOWs for its customers. Although she was physically interested in him and helped give him regular injections of PG67AW, which was a serum that was required to be taken every 24 hours by Wesker for him to maintain his strength after the virus infection. Helping them develop new BOWs, Wesker provided a cut of profits, and the laboratory constructed amongst the underground ruins of Nadipia Kingdom, where Umbrella first discovered the progenitor virus. Now with a more powerful influence within the industry, Wesker began to develop the Ouroboros virus, which he envisioned could cull the human population and ensure the survival of only one genetically pure type of specimen. That's crazy. While working with Tricell under the codename S, Wesker continued to work for the organization and oversaw the 2004 operation to retrieve the dominant species of Plaga from the Los Illuminados, which was a religious extremist group in Spain. With access to a BOW's laboratory, Krauser was sent into the area first and took part in the kidnapping of Ashley Graham, the American president's first daughter, to obtain such samples. With Krauser taking longer than expected to return, Wesker sent in Wong, who returned the following day with the Plaga. Hearing of how the U.S. Special Agent and survivor of Raccoon City, Leon Kennedy, became involved with the sacrilegious terror sect activities, Wesker implored Ada to eliminate him in order to better cover her tracks, as they didn't need this kind of distraction. When Ada proved obstinate In her secondary assignment, however, Wesker would revise his mission statement, saying it'd be best to leave him be as the distraction he can cause. He can't help further their own goals. After making it to the Plaga testing facility, Wesker informed his secondary that Krauser was assigned to dispatch their rogue element, but it was later informed that loyalists had been dealt with by Ada Wong secretly with her help. Ergo, Wesker would further opt her to wait it out. The battle to secure the Plaga sample, then eliminate whoever was left standing. Ada completed her task and handed her handler the Plaga. This was relieved to be not the dominant species of Plaga, or revealed not to be the dominant species of Plaga, and he was expecting the realization that the organization had become aware of such dealings with S. He was forced to travel to the Los Iluminados Island fortress in person to obtain such a sample. Found with Krauser's body, the sample made its way to Tricell, who in the following years gained a sample of the T. abyss virus after Agent Jessica Serway infiltrated the BSAA, which Tricell had established as propaganda tool to appear wholly against the biowarfare. In 2006, Wesker got the message from his dealer Ricardo Irving by informing him that Spencer wished to meet him close to death after being betrayed by Alex Wesker. Spencer wished to see the only remaining Wesker child. Wesker revealing the eugenics project that ensured his rearing career within Umbrella, promotions, and eventual infection with the modified T-virus to him. He also revealed that the creation of the loyal group of modified humans with Umbrella's true goal of for the world, the POWs, merely a means to an end rather than its true form. With Spencer no longer worthwhile a source of information, Wesker impaled him through the stomach, and he was immediately after greeted by Chris and Jill Valentine, who were sent on a mission by the BSAA to arrest Spencer. And in the subsequent fight with the two, Wesker was thrown out of a window by Jill. The two survived, and the fall, and Wesker kept her as a prisoner for his use in the Ouroboros research. He used her in the research, ultimately saving the Ouroboros. Too potent to do anything with, but kill the infected. Jill's T-virus antibodies gave him some new ideas, modifying it, and she was spared the project out of gratitude and provided performance-enhancing drugs to serve as one of his agents. Over the next 2.5 years, Wesker saw the completion of the Ouroboros, as well as the advent of 3 mutant Plaga species to be used on the black market. To test both after killing his entire Ouroboros research staff, Wesker and Irving used the Navid Type 3 Plaga research and later sold the Type 2 Plaga samples to the Kijiji nationalists, who sought it as a means of conscripting citizens for an army to fight for independence. Aware that the BSAA would eventually investigate Wesker's mole within the group, provided them with information on the Ouroboros project, the progenitor virus, and Valentine's survival. Though realizing that they were walking into a trap, the BSAA sent the team, including Redfield, in the main body. Alpha Team was killed by an Ouroboros test subject, while Redfield was convinced to continue searching for Valentine. After finding a digital photograph of her, Redfield and his partner, Sheva Alomar, made the Sheva Alomar made their way straight to Wesker and Valentine, as he hoped. Though unable to kill the pair after several minutes of fighting, he left to a nearby Tricell oil tanker and left Valentine to continue the job. In the night, Wesker made the final preparations for his eugenics plan, which would require the dispersal of Ouroboros in the Earth's upper atmosphere, so the winds would spread it across to every population in the world. No longer seeing use in Guione, he also had her infected with the Ouroboros as a distraction for the BSAA. This was only a mild setback, however, and he was confronted while ready to disembark on the stealth bomber. As the ship began to sink from the damage it had sustained in the Ouroboros fight, Redfield learned from Valentine that an overdose of Wesker's injection could harm him, and in the fight ensuing on the sinking ship, Wesker was successfully injected. It was not enough to defeat him, however, and Wesker managed to board the bomber and began his departure by forcing Renfield and Alomar to follow. Continuing their fight on the bomber, the hatch was forced open, causing him to crash into a volcano, and Wesker to be thrown out. With his plans ruined, Wesker punched a hole in a missile that was storing the Ouroboros sample, infecting himself with the Ouroboros virus in the process. In the course of the fight, Wesker became stuck in lava, and a BSA helicopter evacuated Chris and Alomar. With his newly developed tendrils, Wesker tried to drag the helicopter into the lava, but his attack forced the pair to use a set of RPG-7s and launch rockets at him, destroying him completely. If you've made it this far in the video, I have a special treat for you because a lot of people don't know where Jake Mueller came from. And this is how that happened. At some point in his life, Wesker met a female immigrant from Edonia in her early 20s, whose last name was Mueller. They briefly had a relationship, and she eventually became pregnant with his child, but returned home to Edonia without telling Wesker about the fact. Soon she gave birth to the future mercenary Jake Mueller, whose specialized blood type gave him protection against mutagenic pathogens such as the C virus, meaning that Wesker's immunity to viral infections was genetically passed down to Jake. Later, revealing Jake's lineage to him, Dr. Carla Ramirez mockingly referred to him as a colossal imbecile for his failure to destroy the world, and attempted to do the same with the C virus. However, unlike Wesker's eugenics ambitions with Ouroboros, Carla simply desired to destroy civilization outright and govern over the resulting chaos. Before his death in the 2000s, the HFC group had a role in creating a progenitor-enhanced mold. Collaborating with the connections in the 2000s, the mold